There's not a whole lot of brood on this side. And guess what that is? That's a drone right there. All right, that's all honey, folks, right there. All right.
Here are just a few of the reasons you should attend the 2024 Beekeepers Boot Camp. You'll learn what type of hive is best for you, where to place the hive for maximum honey, get equipped with strategies to protect your hives from pests and predators, master the essential tools of the trade, transform your honey into a business with our marketing tips to grow your brand, understand why bees swarm and how to manage it effectively, how to properly identify the honeybees in your hive, learn when to supplement your bees' diet to keep them healthy and happy, plus plenty of Q&A throughout the day. Our boot camp is your golden ticket to becoming a confident and knowledgeable beekeeper ready to tackle any challenge and reap the sweet reward. Link for more is in the description. Well, hello, friends. Welcome back to Buzz TV. If you're watching on the East Coast, good evening. If you're watching out west, good afternoon. If you're watching during the replay, whatever time it is, we're just glad that you're here. You may have noticed that we are talking tonight about dealing with the top two pests. I promise it has nothing to do with political candidates. We don't get into politics here on Buzz TV. That is not our thing. We are all about beekeeping. It's for beekeepers, by beekeepers. But of course, those pests that I'm referring to, Varroa and small hive beetles. So Ray's gonna tackle that for us this evening. I don't know if you caught the title of our stream, but we're crushing pests, harvesting honey, and giving you a chance to win big. So in addition to dealing with those pests, some great best practices on how to harvest honey. It is that time of the year. And then finally, as you've probably seen the crawler there at the bottom of the screen, go ahead and leave us a question there. We're going to not only answer your questions throughout the show, but your question automatically qualifies you for a free package of bees. That'll come your way in the spring. Italian honeybees are awesome, one of our favorites around here. So we've got a free package of bees to send your way. If you're not, if you don't have a question ready, you could always just tell us what night works best. We're sort of working through some things on whether Friday night's a good night, Thursday night, when we traditionally have been doing the show now for 2 years.
Yes.
We're wrapping up year number 2 of Buzz TV, hoping to be picked up for year number 3, but we'll find out here real soon if the show is picked up for another run of schedule. But you can always leave in the comments, hey, Wednesdays work best for my family. I love Thursdays. I've got no life. Fridays are fine. You're tuned in tonight. But I do want to welcome my longtime friend, Ray Sivitz, back here to the Buzz TV studio. Ray, of course, is the owner of Mountain Sweet Honey, the sponsor of Buzz Television. He's our expert beekeeper, and you put some serious miles on your truck recently. Tell everybody about your vacation.
Well, Brian, we always like to do a big vacation during the summer, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, somewhere around there. And this year it was heading all the way out to Valmont, British Columbia. And if you think about the mileage,
With a small child, right?
yeah, roughly a 2.5-year-old. And Brian, I'm going to tell you, he is the ultimate rider.
Hmm.
We only had out of like 6 days it took for us to drive back from British Columbia back here to Georgia, and he might have complained 20 minutes.
Those Benadryl suckers
No.
Uncle Brian loaded you guys up with seems to have done the trick.
No, we did not do that. Well, it's amazing of just how good of a backseat rider he is. He rolled with it. We did a couple of videos, and Nikki gave a microphone that ties in to our stereo sound system, and he was singing some songs through that. And of course, I had to turn the volume down because at times he was too loud on that. But
was there a Clark Griswold moment? Was there a moment when the family was just sort of dozing off and a Lamborghini, a bright red, candy red Lamborghini with a beautiful blonde Christy Brinkley looking gal?
Who that was, wasn't it?
Yeah, it comes up beside you.
But see, the thing that was so great about this story is I got the Christy Brinkley that was sitting right next to me in the truck.
All right. Good answer.
Cinnamon, she's a knockout gal. But no, we drove up through I'm looking at the map here, Kentucky, and then up we saw Noah's Ark up in Kentucky, and then went to Chicago to the Field Museum, and then we went all the way over to Glacier National Park, and then on up to Calgary, and then over to Valmont and Jasper area. And one of the heartbreaking things was, Brian, when we got back about 10 days later, the fires from south of Jasper came up and burnt half the town down. And those were all good people out there. And my heart breaks for everything out there. Uh-oh, here we go. There we go. All right. But beekeepers, man, Brian, did we see a lot of beekeepers when it came down to traveling? We saw semi-load after semi-load of bees being transported with migratory beekeepers. We saw sideliners. We saw the backyard folks, and it was just so super cool to see all this going on in the upper Midwest during their early spring. Cinnamon got to see some of her favorite flowers bloom here in Georgia, and then bloom again up in Montana, and then again up in Valmont, British Columbia, because that's how the spring wave comes through. And they have a really short summer up there. And so just a really, really good time.
Well, I know you wanted to thank everybody for what had transpired just before you left on vacation.
Yes.
We had done a big bee season kickoff. How did that turn out for everyone?
It went over really good. We appreciate everybody's business. We didn't set any records, but we matched last year.
Nice.
And that's all that counts there, is that everybody got a good bargain during that promotion there.
And we do have some bargains we're going to mention. So
yes.
I know you didn't necessarily tune in just to hear about Ray's wonderful vacation. Hopefully you're enjoying that, but we do have some specials at Mountain Sweet Honey that we'll get to shortly.
You know, I want to go back to my vacation though. At one point I thought I was doing National Lampoon 2, and we were looking for Wally World 2. And so there was some flashbacks during that time. But hey, let's move on here, Brian. Let's see here. You have talked about our kickoff, and it's over to me, I guess, at this point. Am I correct?
It is over to you to officially kick off tonight's show.
All right. Well, let's get my computer woke up here. Okay, so tonight we're going to be looking at nectar flows, talking about nectar flows. We're going to talk about national bee loss. We're going to talk about Varroa Small Hive Beetles, and our Beekeepers Boot Camp. And as that's our last topic here, I will go on ahead and just start this on out with our next segment here. $70, folks, for our National Beekeepers Boot Camp. I'll be teaching every segment. We'll be answering your questions through each segment. And it's $70 for the first enrollment, and then half price for the second, third, fourth, or fifth if you want to bring your family. And that is going to be held at a newer facility, North Georgia Tech, down in Martin, Georgia. And we do have hotel discounts that are listed on our website. And if you just put in boot camp in the search bar, and it will take you right to how to enroll in this. We have folks from all over the nation that will be coming in. I just saw before we went on the air some folks from Mississippi, saw some folks from Texas, and really all over, but that's just the ones that have signed up just in the last hour or two here. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Varroa treatments. There's a couple of ways of treating for Varroa. And the first thing is you got to know, do I have Varroa or not? And we have a Varroa shake kit. Brian, I'm jumping around a couple of slides here.
Okay,
but
and we are going to come back to talking about this 99-cent frame sale in just a moment. Yep. But do you want me to pull up the shake kit?
Yeah, let's do the shake kit.
All right. I'm going to have to run through a few slides here, but that's all right.
That's on me, folks. Okay, so this is the shake kit. We have it in two different ways. Now, what this does is it tells you as a beekeeper, do I have Varroa or not? Now, we're going to get into why you want to know about Varroa, but this is a treatment that you would use. You'd pour it with alcohol all the way up to where you see easy check, and then you shake it for 2 minutes. And after 2 minutes, you'll drain it out and you'll begin your count. If you see more than 8, you'll need to treat for your Varroa. Now, we also have, now using the alcohol kills your bees at that point, but we have a CO2 canister that you can spray in there. And what it does is it anesthetizes the bees, and it also does the same for the Varroa, and it falls out. And you can do your count there too. So using the CO container and spraying it in there is the best for the bees, and the bees can live through it at that point. So once you know that you have Varroa, then you can use Formic Pro to go ahead and treat your bees. And the other treatment that we have is for it's not a treatment, it's a mechanical way of treating for your small hive beetles. And Brian, let's go ahead and pull up the beetle gel. This is the beetle gel. If you look on both sides, and then there's a center port, what you would do is pour your apple cider vinegar into the center, and then on both sides of that, you'll put in mineral oil. And what happens is that apple cider vinegar acts as an attractant, and the small hive beetles will go in and drown in the mineral oil. Now, this is something that you'll need to change out about every 2 weeks, no more than 2 weeks, because the apple cider vinegar will evaporate, and it is no longer a good mechanical tool for treating small hive beetles. So those are the treatments and the mechanical treatment that you can use for what we're going to be discussing this evening. Okay, now let's go to the summer nectar flow.
All right.
I'm going to let Brian catch up with me here, and that's slide 1, Brian.
Okay, we're going to get you right back over there here in just a second.
There you go.
All right. I'm still teasing that 99-cent sale. Do you think that we should do that now or wait until we finish the segment here?
Let's finish this segment first here. All right. So what we have right now is summer nectar is over for about 99% of all the beekeepers. Even the specialty honeys are done at this point. So this is a time that you want to close out your honey production season and begin your processing. And, you know, even the sourwoods up in the upper elevations down here, They're over and done with now. And the reason why you want to harvest your honey frames now is your bees will begin to eat through these stores, because we're in a dearth in most of the areas that you're hearing me right now. And we'll get into what a dearth is here in just a moment. But as you're pulling each of these frames of honey, you're going to be looking at what is capped, what is uncapped. And you can use a honey sensor to figure that out if you so chose. But typically, that's 16 to 18% moisture content for honey to be produced. Now, if you harvest that prematurely and and you get it into the tank, you're going to most likely see that turn into like an alcohol-based type of honey, which will taint the rest of the honey on that side. So late harvesting, you're going to have lower honey yields because your bees have been eating through it. If you, I see a lot of people wait until October. You'll lose gallons of honey during that time, and they're going to be eating those honey stores during the dearth that we're currently in. You know, Brian, today when I was coming back from my annual physical, I saw goldenrod, and goldenrod is the next important nectar source that's going to start presenting itself. And it was just good to see a little bit of blooms here and there, Brian. But it was always a nice reminder that cooler weather is coming, folks. It's 92 degrees down here right now and about 100% humidity.
And we did have a question about goldenrod, and when I find that,
Okay.
we'll throw that out here in just a few minutes. I do want to remind people, go ahead and keep those questions coming in. We've got over 50 people almost 60 people in the live stream so far. So ask those questions, get eligible to win a free package of bees, and we look forward to Ray's answers as the show continues.
All right. So what is a dearth? All right. A dearth is a time when there's limited, very limited, or no nectar in a given area. So that's what we call a dearth. And this is normally late summer, fall, and of course, winter. So we're not going to see any real nectar sources. Now, let's talk a little bit about goldenrod, since that is a nectar source. You want to get your honey out before that new nectar from the goldenrod comes in. You're going to see a transition of smells within your apiary. And what it goes from is a real nice sweet smelling to, oh man, this smells like a locker room. And so that's the reason why you want to go on ahead and harvest that. Now, I know I'm going to have a couple of people that say, hey, I love goldenrod honey. I get it, but I'm talking to the super majority of folks that do not want that into their honey. All right, Brian, I see we got a question. Go ahead and call it out here.
All right, this is from David Moore. Is goldenrod a strong enough resource to fill a medium super with honey, providing that it's a strong hive? So what do you think on that question?
It is a nectar source. I'm not so sure it will fill a medium super, David, on that. You need a lot of goldenrod, and I'm talking 5 to 10 acres of goldenrod to really see that kind of production there. One of the key things that I like about goldenrod is that's also a very high in pollen, and you're going to see a lot of pollen coming in during that time. And like I said, it's going to smell like a Foot Locker. Very, very smelly on that side.
Yeah,
so,
no thanks. No thanks.
All right. You don't want any, Brian?
No, after having teenage boys, for a number of years in the house, I'm done with that odor.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about the national bee loss. They're running a little bit behind this year on it. I would suspect that we're going to see somewhere between 30 and 45% bee loss for this season.
Is that typical? Is that what you normally would expect, or is that
when we
different?
do our pluses and minuses, Brian? You know what we added for the year, and then how much we lost. if you can come in at 15 to 20%, you're doing really, really, really good. I think there's been 1 year out of the 13 that we've been up and running that we were, like 11, 12% loss. So yes, everybody's seeing losses. It's just how deep are the losses on that side, which kind of leads to the next little tidbit of information. Now's the time to order your bees while the prices are low. Those that have been with us for a long period of time know that each month we increase the price until we're into the bee season itself. And we're seeing robust sales as we speak on next year's orders of bees. Typically, you can save anywhere from $30 to $35 a package by ordering now and not waiting till after the first of the year. So order now, and you can always cancel free charge, get your money back if your bees all make it through. Just let us know by February the 1st, and we'll give you a full refund back on your credit card on that there. So what's attributed to these bee losses? Varroa, small hive beetle, and of course the weather. This past season, and you may recall in April 2023, there was a 42 to 50% loss. And that was mostly because of a very cold winter. Well, this past winter was more mild than we have seen in quite some time. And a lot of bees made it through. And that's the reason why I'm reducing my forecast down to 30 to 35, 45%, somewhere in that bandwidth for this coming season. So the big thing is feeding your bees during the winter and getting those pollen patties on the hive. We'll have pollen patties in here in about a couple more weeks, and those will be ready to go out the door on every order. And we'll let everybody know on our email and also on Facebook that we do have them in stock.
And Ray, let me remind people that if you haven't signed up for the Mountain Sweet Honey newsletter, I encourage you to do so. When you visit mountainsweethoney.com, there'll be a nice little pop-up that gives you the ability to enter in your email address. That way, you're the first to know about the sales, the savings ahead of everybody else. Sometimes there's discounts that are only available for those that get the newsletter. If you're not currently receiving regular communication a couple times a week, Ray will send out an email with all the specials. Go ahead and sign up at mountainsweethoney.com.
Now, Brian, those emails also have a lot of education material to them. And so we try to get a blend of education and sales together. We know a lot of folks are struggling with their finances, and we're trying to do some great markdowns in the weeks to come to help you get a little further down the road with less money. And we're just going to lower our prices and make it work for you, our loyal customers. So we appreciate that. All right. So what we want to do for this next segment is talk a little bit about how to keep your bees alive and have them thriving. So I'm going to offer some suggestions here so that you can be successful this coming winter. All right. So the first stop that we've got is talking about Varroa. Varroa is the number one killer of honeybees, hands down. Weather is number two, and number three, small hive beetles would be the other pests that are creating havoc within our hives. So let's talk a little bit about what Varroa is and how to stop it from taking over your colony. Varroa is a mite, like what you see here on the screen. This is an adult Varroa. And basically, the Varroa starts with a honeybee when it's in the cell as an egg and just getting out from the egg stage to the pupa. And that's where the Varroa wants to lay the eggs so that they get them young and that they can stay in there and be a host, the bee being a host for the Varroa. So Varroa we need to look at as kind of like a ticking time bomb. like what we see in our school systems, elementary, especially in high school and middle school, is during the fall, late fall, there's always the flu bug that comes through. We can also think of Varroa being that same flu, is that they are um, they are placing, because the bee is a host, they're placing this uh, virus within the bees, and then those bees pass it on to other bees within the hive, and before you know it, that whole hive is infected by the Varroa, and then they're going to be going to other hives through drift, especially, and begin to contaminate other hives with this virus. And so it's just something that you got to get in front of. You know, we hear several times a year large beekeepers. We saw this up in Canada. What was that, Brian? Last year this time,
I think
as
so.
we were talking about that, is that excuse me,
Mhm.
is that they weren't treating for Varroa. They thought that being that far north was not going to be an issue for Varroa, but it was, and it wiped out a lot of bees. You know, they're still trying to calculate what the exact loss was, but it's somewhere between 50 and 60%,
Mm.
and if not greater. So, you know, they have that, and it's going on in Australia too. And uh,
And that was a
Australia,
recent addition there in Australia. They had not really
yes,
been infected until the last a year or two.
yeah, and you know they jumped through a lot of hoops trying to eliminate Varroa completely, Brian, but they were very unsuccessful because it's a virus that spreads, and they were burning hives all over these contamination zones trying to stop it. But once a bee has it, they can pass it on to other honeybees.
Mm.
So that's the problem with Varroa. So um, the Varroa then attaches themselves to the thorax and of the honeybee, and that's when they begin to contaminate the honeybee itself. All right, so so one of the things that we can do, well, let's back up just a hair here, is bees are hygienic, and they're going to get some of those mites off from the bee as they're going through their cleaning of each other, and they're going to drop down. If you have a screen bottom board, they're going to fall all the way down to the sticky board and outside of the hive. They can't get back in once they've fallen through. So a screen bottom board is a mechanical way of eliminating Varroa. Now, will it eliminate it completely? No. I would say that you're looking at about a one third to a half of the Varroa falling outside the hive. The others are going to be too attached to the thorax for them to be pulled off by another honeybee. So, a lot of times, you know, we see as beekeepers, the queen bee is marked with a paint pen, and those honeybees can just chip that right on off. So they're really good at the hygienicness of cleaning each other and the queen bee itself. So um, a screen bottom board is absolutely the way to go as a preliminary mechanical way of getting rid of Varroa.
And just to make sure I understand what you're saying, this allows you to identify that there is a problem. And so once by mechanical, you mean that it allows you to just sort of physically observe that there's an
Yes.
issue. And then once you recognize, okay, I'm seeing these dead Varroa, these dead mites, now I need to take some form of action, which is what you're speaking of.
Yes. And right now is when the highest load of a colony is. And, you know, I was just talking about, Brian, that this was all the way up to Canada. Well, it's everywhere basically now, Varroa is. And the bad thing about this, folks, is once it gets started, there's no way of stopping it. And that's why we got to get on our Varroa treatments and get those going. Let's go on the offensive and stop this before we lose, most of our hives in our yard. And Brian, I see you have a
Yeah, I was
question from
wondering
Mark.
if what Mark is asking might be an offensive strategy, and going on offense, as you say, about making a split of a colony. Is that an effective mite management strategy? And if so, what is the latest that you could make a split of your colony? Thank you, Mark, for the question. You're entered to win some free bees.
Yes, thank you, Mark. Splitting your colony really will not help in cutting down the mite load, because even if you have the mite load cut down, you still have the virus that's there. So what you could do is get a drone frame and let the queen lay drones in that green frame, and then take it out, put it in the freezer, and then that will kill those Varroa, young Varroa that are in the hive there. That is another possible way of treating for mites on that side. So, folks, if you ignore it, it will it will come and bite you. It might not get you this year, but it will get you. I mean, I've seen some really great beekeepers that just said, "Hey, I'm not going to spend X amount of dollars on treating my bees this season." And I've even seen some folks out on the speaking circuit that say, "Hey, my bees are so hygienic that I don't have to treat." That's not a good course. Those folks eventually, year one, year two, or year three, will get bit and with a Varroa. And I've seen guys lose 500 of 600 hives, and it was only because a couple of yards were miles and miles away from the others, and thus escaped that round. And I don't know of any beekeeper that would want to lose, 50 to 75% of their hives. So
Hmm.
again, Brian, I'm out here banging on my pans, trying to tell everybody.
I was just thinking, please, man, some good news. All right,
Yeah.
you've made the case that this is something to be taken seriously. I do hope that you'll have some good news for us on ways that we can combat these pests.
Well, the great thing on this, Brian, is if we communicate this across the board from coast to coast, and we've already seen our customers have jumped on this. And one of the things that we know without a shadow of a doubt with our phone calls is that if we help you save your bees, you're able to grow more in your apiaries. And whether it's more honey production, or that you want to add an extra hive, so in the following year you can add more honey yields to your apiary. So it's a win-win for us if we help you get your bees through the season. And the collapse happens, Brian, in just about 60 days. And in 60 days, that's when the bees have so much of the virus. They have deformed wing virus. They have where they just come up missing all of a sudden. They just go out and die in the fields, and you just get a small little handful that's there, and then the first freeze that comes, that gets those, because there's not enough bees within the hive to keep warm during the winter months.
Are there any other treatments like fresh spearmint? I see Peggy asking a question about the use of fresh spearmint for Varroa. Have you found any essential oils or anything along those lines that might be helpful?
Well, Dr. Jennifer over at Clemson University, we looked at several different ways that people were treating for bees, and even the sugar shake. You may be aware that people say, "Hey, if you do powdered sugar, spreading it across your bees as they're in the hive, that requires them to start self-cleaning and each other, and they'll pull off those Varroa." That's absolutely a fallacy. With what Clemson University found in that is that there was no change with a sugar shake. And so the biggest thing is, and that was Peggy.
Yes,
That
Peggy.
I don't know of spearmint being an essential oil that takes care of Varroa. So there's no data out there that shows anything on spearmint helping on Varroa.
Are there any bees less susceptible to mites? So one of our good friends, Papa Roams Outdoors.
Yeah, Papa.
I follow him on Instagram. Of course, you can follow Mountain Sweet Honey on Instagram as well. But our channels hasn't quite caught up to Papa Roams yet. He's always got some great videos, and he's wondering what about other types of bees that might be helpful.
And that's a good question, because you go out there and on the internet, you see everybody says, I have the best bees. They're the most hygienic and blah, blah, blah. We don't market our honeybees that way, because all honeybees have a hygienicness to them, and they do self-clean. And I just don't see any data other than somebody beating on their chest at some club meeting saying, hey, X bees are the best bees, or my bees are the best bees. So there's just a lot of false information when it comes out to the different types of bees and the hygienic side there, Brian.
Right. And I had a question up just a moment ago. I'll throw it back up again. I think you've answered this. His question implies that there might be a type of hygienic bee, but what you're saying is don't buy into the hype of that.
Yeah.
It's not really what it's
Greg,
purported to be.
Yeah, that one there, if somebody has to say that their hygienicness is better than others, you can ask them for proof.
But my college football team is better than your college football team,
exactly
and I'll stand by it.
That's exactly what's going on.
I'm saying it really is. My team really is better than your team. I know you've told me not to talk about politics and about sports on the show, but Brian, I'm just saying, how about them? All right.
So Brian, let's see here. Where are we here? Okay, so we've talked about the shake kit. We've talked about how to use the CO2. All right, now let's talk about small hive beetles. And I have lost my notes here. Let's see here. Okay, let's talk about small hive beetles. For some reason, it became out of my notes here. So let's talk about it. All right, let's talk about how they start and how they end. All right, the small hive beetles are typically, the female lays the eggs inside of where the pollen is packed in by the bees. So those eggs go in there, they set in there for the whole next 8 months. And then all of a sudden, in the early spring, you'll start seeing pollen all over the bottom board of your hive. And that's the first sign that you're going to be looking for when it comes to, do I have a small hive beetle problem or not? And what has happened is they come out, they look a lot like a little inchworm or a maggot that will be there. And they eventually get to the honey, and they begin to eat on the honey. And you'll see those maggots at times right there in the honey, and that is small hive beetle larva that it has went wild there in your hive. After that, they go out the front of your hive, and they will go up to 20 feet from the hive once they fall out of the hive, and they're trying to locate ground where they can dig into the ground and pupate. Now, this is why you don't want to have your hives under a tree, because that's moist soil, and moist soil allows those small hive beetles to burrow down in and pupate. And once they arise out of the ground, they're flying back in to the hive. And the bees are kind of mesmerized by them. They'll corral them into the back corners of the hive, but they'll actually feed them. And what they do is they touch, Brian, the antennas of the honeybee, and that makes them want to regurgitate the nectar that or honey that they are producing on that side. All right, so a couple of things that you can do when it comes to small hive beetles is you can lay down in the front of your hive out 15 feet. Clemson University did a big study on this too, where they said it needed to be 20 feet from the hive out because that's how far the larva would inch their way out until they died.
And what are you laying out just for
A landscaping fabric?
Okay.
Black
All right.
is the best because, Brian, that black attracts heat during the spring and summer. And as soon as that larva hits it, it burns them up.
Nice.
And so that is the perfect way of doing it. Now, does it look great? No. What you can do, folks, is get some river stone and put over top of that black landscaping fabric. And that way there, it looks good. And it also helps you fight the larva as it pupates, trying to pupate. So that is what I would strongly suggest. Now, they always go towards the sun. They never go back towards the north. So you can put this at the halfway point of your hive underneath and take it out 10, 15 feet. So that is the best way to deal with small hive beetles.
On this same subject, Mark had a question about treating the ground near the apiary for small hive beetle grub. So you've talked about putting down the landscaping fabric.
Yes.
Are there any other options for treating the area around the hives that would help?
Yes, you can put some diatomaceous earth down, and that diatomaceous earth will definitely really scrape up the larva as it goes down in, and they get an infection and die at that point. So diatomaceous earth, it takes some time to do it, and you have to retreat on that side because once it gets wet, it's over and done with. You have to put down a whole new covering on that there. But using landscaping fabric never allows the small hive beetle to get down in the ground, so it dies. So that is the best response for the small hive beetle.
Ray, I do think that Peter's question that I've just thrown up on the screen might be helpful considering Tropical Storm Debbie, which has been wreaking havoc on the East Coast. It looks like Peter is from Florida, dealing with the initial effects of the hurricane.
Mm-hmm.
What type of thoughts do beekeepers need to be considering if they've received a deluge of rain over the last 3 or 4 days?
Peter, appreciate your question, and my prayers are out for you guys in Florida. One of the biggest things that you got to do is get it up off the ground and keep it ventilated underneath. So if you're setting your hive down on the ground or 3 inches off the ground, it's going to retain a lot of the moisture that's there, and that moisture will create all kinds of bacteria on the outside, and it will rot the wood, and on occasion it will work itself in fairly quickly inside the hive. So keeping the hive dry is the best way to go about this.
Felt like there was a hurricane happening outside.
I think somebody with some deep bass.
Yeah, exactly. Teenage boy who's excited about his new bass kit there in the car is making his presence.
Our lights.
It did.
Yeah.
I grew up in Huntsville, Alabama, near the Space and Rocket Center and Redstone Arsenal. And back in the day, Werner von Braun was testing rockets out there all the time. So I'm used to that rattle and shaking, but that was a first here at our studios.
I almost thought that was an earthquake.
Yeah, I was thinking, okay, what's going on here?
So, South Florida, well, anywhere here in the Southeast, you got to keep your bees out from the real moisture. Bees do not do good in moisture. They'll do good in heat, but the combination, the moisture and all the bacteria that comes with it, is just not good for your bees on that, Peter.
Well, cool. Thank you, Peter, for asking the question. And of course, remember everybody who's asking a question tonight or just putting into the comments what evenings work best for you to watch Buzz TV. Are Fridays better than Thursdays, or Wednesdays your favorite? Just leave us a comment there. And at the end of the show, I promise you that we will be having a drawing for freebies. And I promise you that we're going to let you in on a couple of special deals that we have going on at Mountain Sweet Honey. So stick with us, and I'm going to throw it back to Ray, and I'm going to go tell the young man to get off my lawn.
All right. All right. Go get him, Brian. All right. So the other way for treating for small hive beetles, there is the beetle gel that we just talked about earlier in the show that uses apple cider vinegar as the bait, and they fall into the mineral oil and drowned. That in a heavily infested hive, you'd want to use two, one on each of the back corners of the hive, and change those out on a weekly basis, not bi-weekly basis. So that is the best way to do that. We have seen some dryer sheets that have been used, but the problem is if you use those dryer sheets, they have to be scent free. If you use something with scent in it, it's going to really mess your bees up, and it's also going to taint your honey. So you got to be really careful on that side there. What happens is, supposedly on this, is the small hive beetle has some very sharp spots on its legs for helping to crawl, and it gets caught up into those fibers, and they can't get out at that point. Now, I'm not endorsing that because I have not tried it, but it is out there. I do know that the beetle gels do work. It's very cheap and effective on that side.
And all of these products are at mountainsweethoney.com. If you just go there to the at the top of the page, you'll see what exactly will it say in terms of finding the tools that we need at mountainsweethoney.com.
Yeah, they can just put beetle gel.
Okay, just type that in the search.
Yep,
all
into
right.
the search beetle gel. And let me also talk about the beetle gels too. Is they are disposable, so after the season, they're going to be a little gummed up with bacteria and stuff because of the apple cider vinegar, and just throw them out. They're just a few dollars each, and very disposable. We probably go through several thousands of these in a given season, Brian, and so it's something very, very common. Now, how do we keep our bees alive going into the fall? You're going to need to feed. Even during the goldenrod coming through, go on ahead and feed, and you're still going to go to 1-to-1 sugar ratio for almost everybody. If you're in the Southeast, you're going to do this all the way up to November the 1st. But soon as you start seeing temperatures dropping down in the 40s, that's when you want to go to a 1 to 1.5 sugar at that point. And then when you get into the freezing time, it's a 2-to-1 on the sugar side on that there. So that is what you want to definitely be doing right now. We have Ceracell feeders. They're greatly priced. We're the best price in the nation on those. We get those out of New Zealand. And we're beginning to do a lot of importing from New Zealand. They've got some really great products down there, and we've tested them and just doing a really super good job on that side. So feed. You won't be feeding much during this time of the year, but it will decrease. When you get into December, you only have to look at your feeder once a month. But during this time of the year, you're probably going to be looking at every other week, filling up your feeder.
What do you think about Scott's question about using a beetle jail? Listen to my voice. I'm turning. Heck, that was
Alabama.
well, no, Nikki's rubbing off on me, and that was one of the questions. Where's Nikki tonight? So,
well, Nikki is with some family, a family deal that they got going on, and I said, Nikki, that's far more important than being here on Buzz TV. She puts a lot of hours in and gives her heart and soul every day, Brian. and by all means, she needs to have some time off. So,
and she will be on future editions of
yes.
Buzz TV. Don't
Yes.
worry. So
Yep,
that was my shout out to Nikki.
Yep.
Beetle Jail. Can you use the Beetle Jail and Formic Pro at the same time?
Yes, you sure can. Now you're going to find that they're going to be a little testy if you try to do both of these at the same time. And folks, please remember, using Formic Pro, it needs to be below 90 degrees consistently during the treatment period on that. If you go above 90 degrees, you're going to set your bees back. You're going to see a lot of die-offs. So very important. Wait until the temperatures get down below 90 before you use Formic Pro. We have some other treatments if you want to get started before then, but 90 degrees is the top threshold number for Formic Pro.
That is good to know. Well, thank you for being here on Buzz TV. We're not done yet. We still are going to talk about harvesting honey tonight. Still got a package of bees to give away. And what direction, sir, do you want us to roll next?
Well, let's just talk one more time about the nectar flows. The nectar is done, folks. There's very little nectar that's out there right now. And that nectar, your bees are going to just consume. And, but you got to harvest. You got to harvest your honey now and get it put in your holding tanks. And, you know, Brian, we had a holding tank promotion, and we knocked some serious money off those holding tanks. And folks, we have them from 160 pounds all the way up to 570 pound holding tanks. So holding tanks.
But that
really
promotion
handy.
Is over, just to clarify.
We've done some markdowns still
okay.
On them. So go online. Holding tanks are really good. And here's why you want a holding tank. If you pour, we'll just say 100 1-pounders and 200 2-pounders, most likely you're going to sell out of those 200 200 1-pounders, and you'll have to convert your 2-pounders to 1-pounders. So this eliminates that. You just pour as you need it. And that 570 pound holding tank, Brian, is really a big tank. And of course you get a pour gate on it too. So no extra costs are needed on that there too.
Well, I laughed at Henry's response, which is up on the screen. I'm hoping my honey sales will cover my sugar costs.
yeah, Henry. Now, let's talk a little bit about that. Several years ago, I did a study on this in our bee yards, and it took roughly 12 pounds of sugar per hive to get my bees through this from this time of the year all the way to the spring nectar flow. So if you want to use that as a calculator of how much you're going to need. Now, good places to find sugar: Costco, Sam's Club, typically have the refined sugar. Now, if you're near a sugar mill, and believe it or not, there's sugar mills even up in Canada. Did you know that?
I did not.
They import it. And they don't actually have the sugar cane there, but they import it in. And they have spillages. And those spillages, they can't sell that sugar. So you can get it like for, I would say somewhere around about 25, 30 cents a pound. So that is an option that's out there. And if you do find it, get as much as you can and sell it to your local bee club. That's an excellent way to raise money from the bee club side.
I just had a giant spider come right down here.
One of those Yarrows? And he's using his cell phone to
these iPhones are amazing. Oh, great. It's in the headphone jack. That's not, but he's gone. Hey, I did want to throw in that's nasty. I did want to throw in a pro tip though. If you're selling honey, don't hesitate to raise your rates if you're selling jars of honey. We all are dealing with inflation, and I would get ahead of it on the front end if possible. So if sugar costs are having you a little worried, go ahead and raise the cost because people will pay for the quality honey. So don't
Brian,
hesitate to raise those rates.
Yeah, Brian, that's a good point. I was on the phone with a good friend out on the West Coast a couple of days ago, and we were talking about the state of the industry. And one of the things that he said is the honey producers, the sideliners and commercial guys are really getting hurt right now with the packers, and they're like $1 under where they should be, and that's huge money when you're talking semi loads of honey. Well, the same thing flows down to backyard beekeepers. Um, hey, you work really, really hard for the honey that you're producing. And one of the things that I had to say to myself in the early years is I can't be everything to everybody, but I'm going to have very, very good quality honey, and I'm going to command the highest price, and I'm going to be able to offer it year round. And I know a lot of beekeepers just want to sell it off as quickly as they can. But the real money is being able to offer honey year round so you can get friends of friends. And Brian, when I started doing that, it was amazing on the talk around town and in the area here was, hey, if your guy doesn't have honey, my guy does. And that was Mountain Sweet Honey. And so we developed our honey sales very, very quickly because when the other guys sold out, they just said, sorry, it'll be next year before we have honey. And at that point, I was able to introduce myself and say, hey, I've got this great premium honey. It's going to cost a little bit more than what XYZ is selling it to you, but you try some right here. And I'd let them try it, and they'd just open their eyes and say, man, this is really good. I'll take 2 of those instead of 1. And so, having year-round honey will very much pay off in the short term and in the long term as a beekeeper.
And what type of honey extraction supplies or honey jars or cute honey bears that are squeezable and lovable? What are some of the things that we can help those that have a cottage industry going with their honey sales?
Well, Brian, one of the things that we're very prideful on is that we got you covered. Just go on our honey supplies on our website. We have them from uncapping tools to jars to extraction equipment. So we got you covered there. Now, I will tell you, our jars are going very, very fast right now. So order your jars. We got the best prices out there on jars. So take a look at what we have and place your order. We'll get it shipped out on Monday afternoon, coming your way. Because I know without a shadow of a doubt, if you need containers, you need them now, not 2 weeks from now.
Absolutely. Is now a good time to talk about frames?
Frames, yes. Let's tell them about the deal here.
We've been teasing this. I'm going to find a slide here real quick.
Let me tell you a little bit about our slides here as Brian's rooting through here. First of all, folks, I'm very happy to announce we are now holding at a minimum of 100,000 medium and deep frames at all times. Our business has really done well. And I don't know of anybody else except the big giant on the block that has frames in this kind of quantity. This means that we can offer it to the backyard beekeeper and to the sideliner and to the commercial beekeepers. So, Brian, tell us about this.
Now, we have these frames available for medium and deeps as well. So whatever size that you need. 99 cents. I think it might have been 1995 last time that wooden frames, unassembled wooden frames, were at this price, but they are easy to assemble. And when we say we may never see these prices again, it could be quite some time. Just make sure that you go to mountainsweethoney.com in the search bar, type in the word frames. It'll take you to the pages to get the right size. Use that keyword frame at checkout to be able to get the 99-cent deal. And how long will this go on? Because
it's going till Monday, Brian.
Through Monday, okay.
And these are premium frames. They're not commercial. They're not seconds. These are premium 99-cent frames, Brian. When we came
what
up with,
possessed you to give away frames at this price?
well, this is the number one thing that beekeepers need year in, year out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're supposed to resupply our hives every 5 years, and this is by far the number one item that we sell outside of honeybees. So we're doing this. Hey, times are a little tight right now, folks, and this is what we're trying to do: is give you what you need so that you're ready for next season. 99 cents. You won't find this anywhere, folks. This is the deal of the deal. If you look elsewhere, you'll see them anywhere from $1.30 to $1.45. And what we're hearing is these prices are even going up even higher going into the new season. And you're going to see a bottom number of $145 a frame unassembled.
Well, just like we talked about raising rates for your honey sales, other companies are having to raise rates, and we just wanted to do something nice to say we appreciate you buying from Mountain Sweet Honey, and we've got a little bit of leeway to offer this 99-cent special.
Brian, I'm going to be honest. This is you want to throw me on number one camera there, Brian? There you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
There we go. Side shot.
Yeah, nice that you're here.
Yeah, all right. These are grooved frames. Mama Lock, these are groove frames, and medium and deep. So all you got to do is put the foundation in there. We got a real slim profit margin on these folks, but you, as our beekeepers that have been with us for years and years, and many of you go back to day one 13 years ago, and this is just us saying thank you for your business over the years. And those that are new, hey, come meet us through this promotion and come get to know us, because you're going to see that you get fast shipping, high quality, and minimal expense when it comes to these frames. So buy now why they're on sale. And Brian, I don't know if I have anything else.
Well, we have a lot of questions.
All right,
so we're going to begin
do it.
funneling through these questions. And let me just go back up to the very top here. And as I find something that looks interesting, we'll just sort of run through these. Jeffrey wants to know, do some nectar sources cause honey to crystallize sooner than others?
Okay, that is a good question. Different types of honey or nectar sources have higher or lower sugar content. And one of the things that I see that happens most of all is honey is put into cool environments where it gets down into the 60s. For example, you go into the produce department at your local grocery store, and if it's near any of the refrigeration units, it's crystallizing. So long as it keeps warm, room temperature 70 degrees, there really should not be any crystallization that's there. If so, getting a warmer room would be the best bet, and then it will decrystallize at that point.
James asking, how often should mite checks be performed?
All right, Brian.
Oh, hold on. That's my alarm.
That's your mother calling you.
Yeah. Hey, Ma. All right.
You threw that phone away. All right. Okay.
How often should we do mite checks?
All right. Mite
Ma,
checks.
I said I'm on the air. Sorry about that. She knows better.
Brian and his family. All right. If y'all think you have special families,
Ma, where's the meatloaf?
He is a special person and his family. All right. He's over there smiling.
I'll behave. I'll behave.
Right. Thank you, Brian.
I'm turning the phone off.
All right.
Sorry about that.
With a spider in it.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Doing mite checks. If it was me, I would do it immediately when I'm harvesting the honey in July. And then I would do one more check in September, late September. just to make sure that the bees are going into the fall and winter very, very strong, and that there is no virus running around inside the hive.
We're going to do sort of a speed round here since it is past 8 o'clock here, but we did promise to answer questions. Mrs. B and the Mister. Well, that sounds like a nice novel. I made my bees mad harvesting honey. I'm going to leave the frames out. Will they take the honey and run?
All right. I think what she's okay.
She probably needs to know, do I need to go secure my frames, or is somebody going to abscond with all the honey? That's how I took it.
All right. Let me just go down this rabbit trail here. First of all, the first sentence, yeah, they're going to be upset. They've worked hard for their honey, and they know that they've got to get through the winter season and these dearths in between. And they're not going to be happy. There are times, folks, that I've had to do double suits and double gloves. There's those hives that are out there that are not very happy, and I've actually had to walk a quarter mile a couple of times because I had so many bees all over me after harvesting. So if you leave the frames out of the hive, other bees or insects are going to take care of those frames for you, and you won't have anything to harvest. And if you just put them out today, tonight, probably the raccoons and skunks will come and pay a visit to those frames. So you definitely don't want to leave them out exposed on that there.
All right, Jackie has a question about harvesting honey for first-year bees. She's heard that you should not harvest honey for a first-year hive. What are your thoughts?
Jackie, thank you for your question. Okay, so you want to have at least one medium super of honey going into the after season. If you have 2, 3, or 4 extra supers, go on ahead and harvest the third, fourth one. Obviously, you have your deep, and then the first medium. As long as it's full of honey, that's fine. Leave it for the bees. You can take anything or everything above that.
This looks like an alternative to some of the options you've presented tonight. Triple Oak Acres Honey Farm wanting to know about using some dish soap. They read something about dish soap in a gallon of water working better than alcohol, I guess, for the mite wash. Have you ever heard of anybody doing that with success? Or
no, I have not.
Okay.
The alcohol tends to dislodge the mite from the bee, and I don't know how the dish soap would do that. The only time I know dish soap is good is when you have bees that are defecating on the outside of the hive, and you need to get that washed off because that also has viruses within it. So I wouldn't really be able to tell you triple oaks if that is acceptable or not. Just have not had any experience with that.
Sure. Ben says, hey, what conditions cause bald brood? Now, I don't know what bald brood is. You may have to explain that for some of us novices. Assuming no wax moths, how can we prevent or correct it? So what is bald brood, and how do you deal with it?
Well, I haven't heard it called bald brood, but chalk brood. And what that is that the larva has been chilled, and that chilling has a bee that comes out that is either deformed or is bald on that side. And that is part of a freeze thaw type of situation that you'll see inside the hive, because the queen has outlaid on the frame what the bees can keep warm. And that's the reason why you don't do 1-to-1 sugar water year round, is you got to slow the queen down to where the bees can keep warm and keep the brood warm during those times there.
All right, this question deals with something called tracheal mites. Have you come across tracheal mites?
Yes, trachea mites are mostly what we have seen and experienced up in the Northeast and the upper Midwest. And you can use tea tree oil. You can use um, tea tree oil is really the best that I would say in doing that. What I try to do, Deneen, is use everything that's natural. I don't like to start throwing chemicals into the hive because there's always residuals that are left behind. So that would be something that tea tree oil or uh,
Lemongrass, maybe?
yeah, lemongrass.
Lemongrass?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for saving me there, Brian.
Mhm.
Lemongrass is also another one that is very good for the bees there too.
Starting to see Ray sweat here just a little bit, so I'm going to try to find some
All
good
right, all right,
stumpers for you. What about wax moths? And forgive me if you've already answered this, but
all right.
what's
Well,
your quick answer?
this one here is really simple. Wax moths are the last to the party. There's been something else that has happened within the hive. For example, a queen has been rolled and she's no longer viable in laying eggs, and there's actually a crash that's happening within the hive, and then the guard bees just are not able to protect the front of the hive, and that's when the wax moths come in. So the wax moths are the last of the party, and they're the ones that makes the biggest mess within the hive.
Brian's got a question, and we just did a video on this recently based on a blog post that you had written, Ray. And he wants to
Yes.
know about, he says that I have honey in the super, not capped, but I have checked the moisture content. It is 17%. Should I extract or wait until the 80% capped rule? Appreciate it. Thank you, Brian.
Well, what I would say here, Brian, is a couple of things. One is I take the frame itself and then I'll shake it like this here, and I'll look and see if there's any droplets on the table or on the hive cover of the adjoining hive that's to my right or to my left. If there's droplets there, I put it back in. If there's minimal or no droplets that are on that after shaking it really hard one time, then I'll go on ahead and process it. And that's just from the commercial beekeeping side on my side there. Um, but 17% is acceptable. 16 to 18% is acceptable. And I would go on ahead and do that if that's what you're seeing with your gauge.
Here's an interesting one. Peg wanting to know about thyme underneath the stands. Is that helpful at all with combating any of these pests? Have you heard of planting anything near the hives that is helpful?
Well, the thing I would say, Peg, is I would not plant anything underneath the hive. The hive needs to have clearance underneath it, and that clearance allows air to drift in and drift out. That means it allows that wood to stay dry. If you start planting anything underneath the hive, it's hard to keep up and keep that distance underneath. So I would say do not do that. I don't know anything about time being viable in controlling Varroa.
Okay, very good. Now, this one, we're big fans of Cyracel at Mountain Sweet Honey,
Yes.
but apparently Sam is having some issues with drowning.
Yeah.
And what suggestion do you have for him?
Well, Sam, we had a couple of phone calls come in, and I had some out on my property, my personal hives, and so I went ahead and did some experimenting, and what I found is it's not the Cyracel feeder. It's if you put okay, so you have your Cyracel feeder, and then if you put um, your inner cover over top of it, it will allow the bees to fly in. If you have it notched on the front, they'll come in and go down through the center part of the ventilation of your inner cover, and they'll go down into the sugar water and drown. If you take that cover off when you have that feeder on, that stops it completely. They're not getting in through the underside of the feeder because of all the protectiveness that's there for the carousel feeder. So it's coming in from the above, and it's just an error made of having an inner cover there. If you have the inner cover out, then look at propolis that's going around. There's a gap enough there that allows the bees to get in, and that's how they're getting in and drowning.
Okay. Papa got my Hey Ma, the meatloaf reference. So it's nice that somebody got my Will Ferrell reference. This will be our last one of the evening. Steve wanting to know about storing empty frames over the winter. I know there's lots of different methods. Do you have a favorite or a recommendation?
Well, Stephen, what I've done is, first of all, I'll harvest my honey out of those, and there's always a little bit of honey that's left within the cells itself. So I just go out and put it in front of the beehives, let them clean it out, and then I go and put it in. You have a couple options. One, you can go put it back into an empty super down in your basement and just make sure that there's no access points anywhere around, below, beside, or over, where wax moths can get in, or any other type of insect like wood roaches or anything like that there. You need to seal it up. That comb is very, very tender, and it will snap in a heartbeat. What some beekeepers have done when they see that they've had pests within the hive is they'll put it into a freezer for 2 days and then pull it out. That freeze will kill anything that's in there on a larva or egg stage there. So put it out of the way, put a bag over it, a large leaf bag. We'll go over it really good and zip tie it. That will work. But by all means, make sure the supers are cleaned out appropriately, as well as the frames themselves, because if not, those bugs will reproduce, and they will just shred through your wax that you've had in there, and it will set your bees back for the following season because they'll have to make new comb. So good luck there.
Quick reminder, September the 28th, the 2024 National Beekeepers Boot Camp in Martin, Georgia, North Georgia Technical College, the site for this year's event. We do hope that you will get involved with us. Go to mountainsweethoney.com. Just type in boot camp there in the search engine, and or you can visit our socials and find some information there on the Facebook page and the YouTube channel as well. If I'm remembering correctly, Ray, I think it's somewhere around $70 per ticket.
$70 for the first one,
and then
$35 for each one thereafter.
To bring your spouse.
Yep.
And then also, as you see up on the screen, we have the 99-cent frame sale going on through Monday. Yep. Prices haven't been this low in almost 30 years. So if you need to stock up on some quality wood frames that the Plastic Foundation goes inside, we encourage you to do so at mountainsweethoney.com. Use the keyword frame at checkout so that the automatic deduction is calculated and you'll get those for that amazing price.
Brian, as we finish this evening, we're going to try to do every 2 weeks between here and the end of the year. And we'll have an education part, and then we'll open it up for questions. And maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm putting you on the hook on this. Can somebody send a video with their question?
Earlier this week, you wanted me to start taking phone calls on the air.
Yeah.
Hey, you're caller number 10, longtime listener, first time caller from St. Louis on the phone. So as soon as I figure out how to do the 7-second delay, as soon as I can get that 7-second delay hooked up, we can do that. So we're always open to your suggestions of better ways to facilitate questions, and maybe we'll just have you pull out your phone, record a question, get them to us throughout the week, and I can load them up, and then we can see your smiling face instead of having to look at Ray for the entire time.
Exactly. Well, folks, thank you for tuning in tonight. And we appreciate you. We appreciate the issues that you are facing. Your content or questions that you give to us creates content that we can give to not only you as a beekeeper, but to the community of beekeepers. So, with that, we say good night, Brian.
Good night, everybody. We'll
right,
see you in a
have a
couple
good
of
evening.
weeks.